So welcome to this module on housing design specs for dairy goats. So housing design and the ability of a dairy goat producer to manage facilities has a very big impact on milk quality of the goats, in addition to the labor efficiency and also the overall farm profitability. So when we take a look at the overall facility design, there's a lot of options and designs out there, how we design these pens, the feed and water space requirements. I also want to kind of give a shout out to Dr. David Kummel, who's retired from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Brian Doherty, who's moved on from Iowa State University as an ag engineer, that also assisted in putting these slides together. So when we take a look at permanent shelter options, we see quite a few hoop barns out there that can definitely provide some pretty good shelter. And also when you take a look at the greenhouses as well, sometimes the greenhouses might provide too much heat in the summertime, and just the difference between, the hot and how hot it might get during the day versus how cold at night and things like that. So there definitely are some concerns with that. But basically the solar heat and the cold lows and frigid temperatures at night can create quite a heat variation in some of the greenhouse hoop barn type systems. Permanent shelter options of post-frame buildings tend to probably be the most popular. They can be converted from other uses to goat applications as well. So if we do, we want to make sure the ventilation needs are calculated, as we don't want to shortchange the goats on fresh air exchanges, because they need fresh air, fresh water, fresh feed to produce milk and have some good udder health as well. Often the lowest cost option, if roof and walls have some longevity to them. If we take a look at remodeling barns, again, there's probably the more popular way to do it is take old facilities and try to remodel them. Sometimes posts need to be moved and worked around, and the ventilation and lighting needs might be inadequate, but overall they're a good option, and we can usually fix those lighting and the ventilation needs in these systems. So semi-permanent portable shelters, whether it be carports or whatever, have given a lot of openness, a lot of good ventilation. Sometimes during real inclement weather, there might be a little bit of a problem, but for the most part, they can do a pretty good job with giving the goats shelter. So porta huts are an option for smaller herds or dolings, and just as smaller animals especially have the ability to move them around different places to reduce some disease proliferation that might happen if they're in a permanent location all the time. They can also provide some very effective housing with these portable shelter options that you can buy or build yourself. So facility design criteria, we need to make sure that it fits the management plan. Different types of goats, whether they be the milking does, the newborn ones, the kids, the yearlings, and things like that. So they all need to provide that clean, dry environment. I think that's probably the biggest thing, that it's got to be clean and dry, and just about everything can work if it's clean and dry and well ventilated. So plenty of fresh air, feed and water, labor efficient, which kind of plays into the larger herds a lot more than the smaller herds, but economical, safe for both the workers and the goats, and we wanted to make sure that it's environmentally friendly as well. So pen design criteria, we need to manage the temperatures, so between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit for adults. And if it gets down to zero, they're kind of ice age creatures. I would probably rather have it cold than they would have it very hot. The kids, 54 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So the dividers, 4 to 5 feet high. We realize that the goats are actually kind of related to the deer, so they can definitely jump. 6 foot for bucks. Wood is okay, but we'll need maintenance. And so a lot of people use the wood and wire mesh panels. So the 4x4 inch squares for the younger goats, 6x6 for the adult goats, and avoid horn goats, because it's not that difficult for a goat to actually hang itself in some of these wire panels. So we need to kind of be careful of what size panels we're using for various size goats. So when we take a look at feed design criteria, the platforms that are raised above the floor try to reduce the parasites, keeps the feed clean, use the toe boards if needed. So that throat height of about 18 inches for does, and the feed's kind of a little bit more raised. And sometimes the more you raise that feed height, the more feed you might actually get pulled out of there as well. A good option is using these slant bar openings for the feeders, so they don't be pulling their heads back so much from pulling feed out as they could. So 4 inches for younger goats, 6 inches for adult goats, and 7 inches for bucks would be the feeder size opening for them. So this graph will basically just show the resting area that we have. So just for an example, it's going to be different whether you're on dirt versus pavement. But the bedded pen total confinement, which we see a lot of them, 20 to 25 square foot per doe or per goat, mature goat. So just when you take a look at that, there definitely are some space requirements that we want for these goats. So the feeding system, 16 to 20 inches ahead. If you're going to limit feed, and they're all going to be, feeding at the same time. If feed's always available, 6 to 8 inches per head can actually do. But when you reduce the feed space per head, realize that milk production would be affected with that as well. So make sure they have plenty of water with them as well, and then 15 to 20 head per every foot of watering space that you have. So again, they don't have to get at the watering space and all the time, or so it's basically just make sure we have enough of that. So in summary, many of the facility options can work if they meet this design criteria, but again, it has a big impact on the milk quality of the goats as well. So that design, to make sure they have a clean, dry environment, is probably one of the biggest things you can do, so that when they come into the milking phase, that udder and those teats are actually clean or ready before we actually start the milking process. So following feeding and water space recommendations to maximize production. And again, this is our email for the Dairy Goat Extension at iastate.edu if you have any questions or concerns, or want us to even make a farm visit if you're from Iowa there. So again, this has been Dr. Larry Tranel, Iowa State University Extension Dairy Field Specialist. Thank you.